Have you forgotten how to start the podcast?
I realised I didn't do the picked a word for the intro thing. You know, the thing that I do that no one cares about.
Cue the music.
Hello, comic book fans, and welcome back to the Comic Lyric Podcast, where we comically
and literally
review comics. I'm Ryan, also known as Comic Stan. I love comic books, but my co-host loves regular books, but I make him read comic books, and this week I made him read Batman versus his ultimate nemesis now, I think, or best friend now. It's Elmer Fudd, if you didn't read the title before clicking on the episode. Why would you? I don't know. But anyway, as with me, as always, my aforementioned verminous co-host is Jamie.
Yo, what's up, motherfuckers?
For the first time, Jamie helped me workshop the word because I realized as we started recording, I was like, oh, I haven't picked a word for the thing that I do that no one cares about.
You can call me verminous, I suppose. I don't even know if that's technically a word.
But you get, well, I mean, if it's not, then the whole thing is ruined.
Well, absolutely. If it's not, it's my fault, though, and the listeners know that.
Yes, we've got a track record of it, and at least, because there's people will be emailing in, being like, I can't believe you, that's not a word, and the sanctity of the intro is ruined. And I'll be like, I know.
Have we ever gotten a comment about the sanctity of the intro?
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know.
We've had comments about our bad journalism.
Yes.
We've had comments just outright calling us dickheads.
Yeah. And some just seeing how we're doing.
Yeah, and then one guy who just like checks in every couple of weeks to make sure we're okay.
Yeah, and we appreciate all of them, but especially the nice ones. But if you want to leave bad ones as well, that's absolutely fine.
I like the mean ones the best. I like the one that was trying to define Nazism to us.
Oh God,
that guy was fun.
When you're taking that stance, you're off to really bad start.
Yeah, you're just on rocky ground, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right, Batman v Elmer Fudd.
Speaking of rocky ground,
who wrote it?
Well, it's written by one of my favorites, our favorites.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Our favorites. It's written by one of our favorites, one Tom King.
And who drew it?
It was drawn by two parts. The main story was drawn by one Lee Weeks.
Yeah.
And there's a nice little bit at the end we'll talk about there that was drawn by Byron Vaughns, with colors in the main part by Vern Kinzierski and the colors in the second part by Carrie Strachan. So.
And Lee Weeks is a legend, right?
You're telling me. I also knew who he was before we read this.
Legend in the game, right? Like drew some iconic Batman stuff.
Yeah, so he's done quite a bit of stuff. For my sins, I didn't know who he was beforehand, but there's a nice little intro from Tom King about Lee Weeks, and apparently he took over Daredevil just after Frank Miller, which is
a big name to follow, isn't it?
I mean, Born Again was one of the seminal comic book stories of the 80s, so for him to take after.
Frank Miller drew...
I don't think he drew that. Because
no, but Frank Miller worked with...
John Romita Jr.
And isn't Frank Miller the guy who worked with... Oh my God, we talk about him on the podcast weekly.
What? Color artist?
No, writer. I'm going to strap in and get my cigarette.
Oh, Alan Moore.
Yeah, didn't Frank Miller work with Alan Moore?
Not that I know of. But they're comparable in some ways. But Frank Miller's interesting because he does sometimes draw his own stuff. And the one time his drawing I think was considered well-received was in The Dark Knight Returns, which was the big three graphic novels are a thing now kind of titles. And then after that he did... And I think he did Sin City, which is well received as well.
Yeah.
And they did like parts 2 and 3, and the drawings were awful. Like his talent really fell off. We'll do that. We'll cover those at some point. Okay. I think that'd be fun. So yeah, Lee Weeks, big name. Tom King was happy and surprised to work daunting almost to work with him. So that was good to hear. But it was interesting seeing Tom King talk about where this kind of all started off.
Yeah.
But anyone who doesn't know this stuff or hasn't read the comic, it basically they came to the writers and were like, we're crossing over DC with the Looney Tunes. And everyone went, cool. Guess that'll be fun then. That'll be fun to see the DC heroes in the Looney Tune universe. And they were like, no, the Looney Tune characters were coming to the DC universe. And everyone, whoa, that's crazy. There's a funny little story about him hearing this news and going, I'm hunting Batman.
Yeah.
And he told it to James Tynion, or Tynion, I can never remember which one. James Tynion the fourth, who was just like, haha, good joke.
But then it's absolutely what the comic book ended up being about.
Well, yeah, because then later they were like, Tom King, what you got for this Looney Tunes DC crossover? And he went, Batman Elmer Fudd.
They were like,
great.
Groovy. get pages to us in a week. And he was like, right, okay.
And then it's especially funny because, as he says in this, by the way, this is the deluxe edition, all this stuff included, not the original stuff. So that's what we're talking about today. But what's funny as well is that he was like, I handed my draft in. I didn't know if it was going to be well or even accepted. Not only was it accepted, it was well received, and it's one of my most well received comics I've ever written. So great.
Question for you before we go in, and it's kind of around the arting.
Sure.
There are, in the deluxe edition, you get 2 distinct versions. One of them in color, one of them in black and grey.
Yeah.
Which one's the original?
The color one, absolutely.
Well, let's talk about that one then.
Yes.
Because they're 2 distinct art styles. Well, no, it's the same art, just one in color, one in black and grey, but it looks very different, gives it a very different feel. Both are fabulous.
Yeah, I read the color one as the kind of proper one, as you did as well, and then had a look at the black and white one afterwards. I'm actually not sure which I would have preferred to be the main one.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because they both have their merits.
Yeah, it's so explicitly noir, which is Tom King's thing, like my favorite of his.
And so,
bloody hell, remember
Target.
the name of my favorite
Human
comic,
Target.
Human Target. Yes.
So making it black and grey was like a cool stylistic choice that, form meets function really beautifully there. But I think my argument would be that it was so well coloured.
Yes.
The colour version trumps it for me. I think the black and white gave it a cool feel, but I'm glad that I sat and read the colour version and then just kind of skimmed back through it a second time reading the black and grey version.
Yeah.
But the art is fucking outstanding. It's so good, Ryan.
It's not only good just to look at. Like, I always go on about when stuff is like muted colors and whether it fits or not. This isn't muted gray color like we see in a lot of stuff, like the Naughty stuff, Naughty's Fantastic Four stuff we did last week. This was a all dark colored but rich black and gray,
and compositionally speaking, like every panel's so well composed, so well put together. It's thoughtful. I think Batman looks fantastic here. We've got a Batman that kind of harkens back more towards the 1960s navy and grey costume.
Yes, a classic look. And I think that fits well because Looney Tunes is kind of an aged property. And that's not to say that it's like done and gone or, of the past or has been, but it's just because it's been around for so long. And I feel like it's Looney Tunes peak was like the, 90s, I guess, with the color cartoons.
I suppose kind of around that Hanna-Barbera. I think Looney Tunes is a Hanna-Barbera property, isn't it?
I don't think so, but I might be wrong, and I am going to double check that.
I know Warner Brothers owned it, but I'm curious.
Yeah,
I think it might have been Hanna-Barbera.
Well, so short films originally ran from 1930 to 1969 was the original one. The golden age of Looney Tunes, apparently. I don't see Hanna-Barbera mentioned.
So, when you said 90s, I thought you were pitching it a bit too recent.
Yeah.
They were certainly...
that's when I remember it from. But...
Well, yeah, you remember it from being a child in the 90s, but it was already dated then. If you compare Looney Tunes to the modern cartoons we were watching in the 90s as kids, it always felt dated in the same way that something like the Flintstones did.
Yeah, no, I see your point, And they've done well to stick around for as long as they have. Space Jam, big revival. Like, that brought them... Not even brought them back, but you know what I mean? Like, that was a resurgence.
Late 80s or early 90s?
That was early 90s.
Was it early 90s?
A great animation for the time as well.
Well, rotoscoped over real footage as well. Like, that's really cool.
Bloody Lola Bunny confused a lot of young children.
I don't know that Lola Bunny confused me. I think that affirmed everything I knew about myself, Ryan.
I'm actually more certain now than I've ever been. Might have been the start of the furry movement.
Yeah.
Which is big now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it had to start somewhere, and why not there?
And then Space Jam 2 apparently was awful, so...
Yeah, it had LeBron in it, didn't it?
Yeah, but that wasn't the problem. And I haven't seen it, but I saw all the reviews for it and stuff. Apparently the biggest problem with it was just like Warner Brothers being like, look at what we own. Like, here's all our properties. Like, look at this universe we can make. And everyone's like, boo, we don't care.
Yeah. But no, the artwork here is really masterfully drawn. I think it... So I'm about to say it does something really well, and I'm also about to critique that very same thing.
Wow.
Which is an interesting sort of... I have a level of cognitive dissonance here.
I think it might be a bit too complex an opinion for this podcast.
I don't know that it is.
Although I hazard to say we might be the most pretentious comic book podcast.
I think we are. I think
we should put that on the
the most pretentious comic book podcast.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool the way that they have brought the Looney Tunes characters into DC by having them as human beings instead of anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, I loved the adaptation because you could for the most famous ones you saw immediately. Like I remember Porky Pig, you look at him, it's like that's a human Porky Pig.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny was like a really interesting
Tweety Bird.
Yeah. Then there was some of the lesser known ones you only knew once they said their catchphrase, but I'm like
Thucker and Thucktail.
Yeah, or I say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I thought it was really cool the way it was done. I would have much preferred to have seen Batman like earnestly communicating about a murder with Bugs Bunny.
I know what you mean.
Like that would have been more fun for me. I think I would have. I can appreciate how well it was done, and I can appreciate the execution, and I can understand the mindset behind it. I still would have rather seen the Looney Tunes characters as they were drawn into the DC universe. That would have been my preference.
Absolutely see where you're coming from. I think I enjoyed this because one, I didn't expect it. Like, because all we knew from the cover was Elmer Fudd, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of gathered like, well, he's a human character, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's only then when you see Bugs and Porky, you're like, oh, they're all human. Like, that's the kind of revelation. But I think as well, and whether we do any more of these or not, like we'll see. Depends how well this one does, I guess. But they did a bunch at this time, and the rest they were their normal selves, I think, or at least looking at like the covers and stuff.
Right. Okay.
So I think this one being potentially the only one that didn't do that or did something different, I think I appreciate it more. And just again, I wasn't expecting to see it when I was like, oh, you've never seen a humanized version of these normally anthropomorphic characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think I agree with you, but I see where you're coming from. Like,
so
would have been funny.
The fact that I'm now aware that this one is singular and having done this makes it cool.
Yes.
But and again, you know, I'm not suggesting that it wasn't well executed, because it was really well executed. Exactly as you say. The moment I saw Bugs Bunny, I went, that's Bugs Bunny.
Yes.
As a human, kind of gangly looking, munching on carrots at a bar. It was perfect. It was incredibly well executed. Kudos to Lee Weeks.
Yes, Lee Weeks.
For the work that he did. And
to just get a script, as far as we know. Like, we don't know what the script looks like. Again, constant issue with crediting comic books. It's like, how did they draw? Did the writer do it by panel and tell them to do anthropomorphic, or did the artist kind of take that like initiative? Like, oh, it'd be cool if it was drawn like this. So we don't know who had what idea, you know?
Yeah.
So Tom King or Lee Weeks, whoever idea was, kudos.
Yeah, well, particularly kudos to Lee Weeks for how he executed it.
Yes.
Because the whole thing looks fantastic.
Yeah.
It's fantastically well drawn. I think it's beautifully well imagined. And again, this is coming from DC. When was this published?
2017.
This was coming from like late sort of. There's no good way to talk about the years between 2011 and 2019.
The late teens.
We have the noughties, we have the 20s, the tweenies.
I say teens or tens.
The teens or tens.
Either or works.
But like a 2010s DC comic, we don't often associate them with having really great art.
I don't know. I mean, I've not read as much. I mean, I got into comics in kind of mid-teens.
Yeah.
Like I was into comic book characters since a kid, but I only actually like sat down and read comics from then. And late teens, I was very into Marvel, because that's when Hickman's Fantastic Four was kind of running out or just ended. He was doing Avengers leading up to Secret Wars. Like, it was all very Marvel stuff at the time. And I've always been a Marvel fanatic. I mean, look how many bloody Marvel titles we do on this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I think we both have a standing preference for Marvel over DC, don't we?
But I mean, if Lee Weeks was working for DC generally and was doing this kind of art, like, this could have been, for all we know, this could have been the style at the time, you see.
And Tom King says that the art that came out of this was worthy of
Batman Year One.
Year One.
Yeah. It's one of the most adapted Batman comics.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, the origin again, so we can do Batman Begins. Like, that was based off that and a lot of other animated series and stuff.
But if this is what Lee Weeks' DC stuff looks like, I'd be really intrigued to have a look through some of it, because it has no business being this good, Ryan.
I'd tell you what I really enjoyed about it was the balance, and a tricky balance of that, of the comedic, the humor, and the serious-ish tone.
So Yeah, I agree with you. Moving on from the art, because I think that's kind of...
Well, I've got a couple more bits to say before we move on. Just notably, there was a really great fight scene between Batman and Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
And what was especially great about it was there was no fucking narration over the top of it, which Tom King does a lot, and it's great, or he puts little bits, not fucking... Or literally, I was going, why couldn't you have done this for Wonder Woman? Like, I've read Wonder Woman, and there was, like, walls of text over these fight scenes that are, like, really cool. I was like, why couldn't you have done that?
And that, like, that moment where... Because Elmer Fudd obviously has his shotgun here.
Yeah, and he's good with it.
And he's good with his shotgun, and he can scrap.
Yeah.
And there's a point where he turns the butt of the shotgun and hits Batman in the face with it, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. Yeah. That's really rad. Like, that looks great, and the fight kind of scans down the page in horizontal thirds... And so you see it move really well down the page. It scans really beautifully. Yeah, no, it was a really cool fight scene. Did you notice? I don't know what the word is for those onomatopoeic.
God, I think I refer to them as like sound bubbles or something like that.
You know when like
the wham, pow, yeah.
Did you see?
Wow.
Yeah. When Elmer Fudd, no, it's bwang.
Bwang, yeah.
When
there was a plow as well.
When Elmer Fudd hits Batman with the shotgun, it says bwang, and I'm like, that's so funny. That's really funny and really subtle, and that really charmed me.
I mean, it's funny, Tom King says in the intro part, it's like, intentionally putting in a lot of L's and R's into the dialogue and the sound bubbles as well. For that reason exactly. Which makes sense.
Anything else about the art?
The one of the splash, I always got to mention a great splash page. Yeah. The one where they enter the bar with all the... It's meant to be all the bad guys. Or Elmer Fudd's like, a lot of hard guys in here. And Batman's like, good. And but it just opens and there's all the Looney Tune characters as like these criminal thugs, basically. And right in the great page, looks great.
Yeah.
And then in the little corner, did you notice it? One cartoon character.
I did, yeah.
And I was like, that's cool. That's like a nice little Easter egg. You know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Because part of me was the overthinker being like, who is that? Is that someone? Should I recognize that? And I was like, it's just a cartoon character. Like that's the joke and it's fine.
Just funny.
Yes. So yeah, moving on to story. What's the story of it?
So Elmer Fudd finds that his beloved girlfriend has been murdered.
Yes, Cloud St. or is it Silver St. Clair?
Silver St. Cloud.
Yeah. So I didn't know her. She is apparently an existing Batman character.
Yeah. Silver St. Cloud.
Yes.
Silver.
I can't.
Silver
St. Cloud.
Silver St. Cloud. He assumes that Bugs has done it, so he goes to kill Bugs.
Because there's a carrot on the floor.
Goes to kill Bugs. Bugs tells him it was Bruce Wayne. He goes to find Bruce Wayne. They strike up an accord because they're both clearly hardcore noir detectives.
Should we save the ending?
Yeah, we'll save the ending. And then they go on a little adventure together.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that grated on me about this comic book, every time Elmer Fudd opened his mouth, and it was the Elmer Fudd voice, I'm totally okay with it. But it's reading his internal dialogue in the Elmer Fudd voice, and there were so many times when I was like, I cannot work out what word he's supposed to be saying.
Do you think people who have lisps or stuff like this think in their lisp?
This is the point I was going to make.
Yeah.
Is that we have clear evidence here, and we've talked about this on the podcast before. Ryan has an interior monologue. I do not.
Yeah. I think in words to myself, and you cannot describe how you think.
Yeah, so I can make myself do that, and I can talk to myself in my head, but my thoughts do not appear to me in language. For all of you, like, lip readers,
that's a different thing.
For people with interior monologues,
word thinkers.
Yeah, for all of you dirty word thinkers,
which apparently half.
Yeah, no, it's around 50%. So for the 50% of you that have an interior monologue, the way I think is baffling. To me, what happens in your brain, Ryan, sounds exhausting.
Here's the weird thing about it, right? And I get where you're coming from, but like, I can articulate how I think. You can't. So which is the weirder one? I was like, I think like this. And you're like, I don't know. I can't describe it.
I can tell you how it works. I just think. Like, I don't... Cause
that's not telling me how it works.
But the interior monologue feels like it's going to be really slow. Like, because you can't think quicker than you can talk, right?
Yeah, of course you can. That's the problem. You know, people like stutters and stuff. Like that's
because they're
like
thinking,
the words are being like sent from the brain to the mouth so quickly that they get jumbled in the mouth. Like that's apparently why it works.
But anyway, this is clear evidence that Elmer Fudd is a word thinker.
All comic book characters are. Because they all have narrations and stuff.
Do we think that's why everyone's... Yeah, no, this is it, isn't it? Every once in a while, you get a comic book character that doesn't have an interior monologue, and they're like me. They're normal people.
The funny thing is...
Who don't narrate their thoughts to themselves. It just seems bonkers to me that that's how people think.
That I understand. Like, it's weird thinking the other side.
Yeah.
Again, I can explain mine, so that's why mine is more normal than yours, is in my opinion.
What, because mine's ineffable? It's not normal?
Yes, you can't articulate it. Maybe if you had words in your head,
right,
you could articulate it. What's interesting is that whole thing is crazy to think that, like, in this and in TV shows and films with interior monologues and stuff, that half the population, and one of those things that people never talked about, it's the same as like there was like standing up or sitting down wiping ass or something like that. One of those things that just never got discussed.
Stand-up wipers, by the way, fucking weirdos.
Yeah.
Could you just squeezing the poo in more,
Don't
right?
understand it, no.
We're
on the same page on that regard.
Fucking A.
But
I didn't need an interior monologue to work that one out, mate. That's just common sense.
You had a picture in your head of shitty ass cheeks. And you were like, I get it. I've worked it out. Right, anyway. It's weird to think that half the population were like, yeah, of course. And then the other population were like, of course, because that's how you have to show that in film and TV and comic books and
totally.
Books.
And 100%, it wasn't until I listened to a podcast about interior monologues, and again, it was two people. I was listening to the Hello Internet podcast, and they had this conversation.
Right.
Which is why I brought it to you, because I was like, I bet Ryan's not a word thinker, and it turns out you are. 100%. When people had interior, because I can, if I want to, I can make myself have an interior monologue.
Yeah, and in the same way I can picture things and sounds and smells, whatever. Yeah. But our defaults are different.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if I'm good and stinking drunk... I like, you know, I mean, I don't get good and stinking drunk anymore because I'm in my 30s.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, man. But when I was younger and I would get good and stinking drunk, I would like have to narrate my thoughts in my head just so I could keep track of the world around me, right?
That's interesting as well.
But in the normal run of things, I don't do that. And so I just assumed that when characters were having interior monologues, it was like a means of showing us their thoughts. And it was like, oh, they're narrating their thoughts to themselves so that we can hear them as well, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's just how some people fucking...
We were like, yeah.
Is it your voice in your head?
Yeah.
Can you make it be a different voice?
You could. That requires extra thought in the same way of, again, the default is the same. You could do anything else. Like with a bit of mental effort, you can picture or imagine anything else.
Yeah.
But your default, the one that happens before the thought is just your voice. Yeah.
So yeah, I wonder if people with really profound and pronounced speech impediments think, and this is the thing, isn't it?
This is where we started.
This is where you started. And I was also going to raise this. I really wanted to have this conversation with you, so I'm glad you also wanted to have this conversation.
Well, I didn't even think about it till you said it, and then I went, oh yeah, like that's a question. Like, does Jonathan Ross in his head call himself Jonathan Ross? Which we're not making fun of people with speech impediments, but he is just a very well-known. He's probably the most well-known British speech impediment person, right?
Yes, I would argue. I mean, again, a lot of people who make it into the public eye have elocution lessons and speech therapy to not have speech impediments anymore. And so by the time somebody has a job role where they are presenting on television on a weekly basis, somebody in their younger years when they started trying to get into entertainment would have gone, sorry, bud, you just need to go see a speech therapist.
But then with some people, you could do it with impediments and extends to cadences as well. Some people having them actually makes them more likely to get famous because they're recognized and remembered.
Yes.
Be like, oh, I remember you from the other show, whatever. Like that increases their kind of thing.
There's that comedian who did the TV panel shows who's a bit kooky, bit weird, and he has like a very particular tonality. And I don't think he'd be funny without it. I can't remember his name. He looks like Joe Lycett, but he isn't Joe Lycett.
I don't watch enough panel shows nowadays to know.
Me neither, but he was doing the circuit when I was like a bored teenager.
Right.
But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. It, a distinctive vocal quality, like Jimmy Carr or Graham Norton's laugh.
Yeah, I was thinking a bit grander, but in terms of like cadences and how they're specifically remembered. But what's the difference between the cadence of like Christopher Walken and like, because it's not an impediment, obviously, but it's also such a unique speech pattern.
Yeah,
like, it's such a recognizable.
Like that scene in Pulp Fiction where he's talking about the kid's dad having that watch up his ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, your daddy had this up his ass. Like, it's just very Christopher Walken, isn't it?
The best one I've heard. This is the end of the tangent. I'm finishing on a high here. Dave Grohl has a story about when they were in SNL. They were performing the music and Christopher Walken was hosting. And the host always introduces the music act when they play. And he was speaking to them before the show and he went, trying to do my best Christopher Walken accent. It's like, with the introduction, like, which part do I put the emphasis on? And Dave Grohl was like, obviously I just wanted to be like, it's just Foo Fighters. But he was like, it's on the fighters is the emphasis. And he went, okay. And then he went out like, and Dave Grohl does his impression. It's the best Christopher Walken snapshot of an impression I could do is because of this Dave Grohl story. He goes, Walken comes out and goes, ladies and gentlemen, Foo Fighters. It's so good. So yes, anyway, back to Elmer thinks in his impediment, if it's even an impediment, maybe it's just how he learned to speak.
Yeah, maybe he likes it.
Yeah.
So I found that a bit grating, if I'm being honest with you. I didn't find it grating when he was speaking. Anytime it was dialogue, it was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense. And there wasn't even a particularly egregious amount of narration here, particularly given the genre.
And given the writer.
Yeah, within the conventions of the genre, it's Tom King doing noir.
Which is his bread and butter.
There's going to be narration. It's a Tom King noir comic. There is going to be a lot of narration.
But also it was only in certain parts.
Yeah.
And mainly the beginning, which is, again, very noir. That intro, walking down a dark alley and all the bars, you have to walk in a mine, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And contextually, it made a lot of sense. And so I don't think there wasn't an egregious amount of it. I don't think it was badly used. It was just the Elmer Fudd voice that grated.
Yeah. It's especially funny because it shows you right off the bat, like before it starts, again, this might be the deluxe edition, the why this was, but before the story even starts, it just has the line, which is, I'm hunting playboys.
Which was funny.
It's funny, and it's even funnier when you think the reason he didn't use Batman was because it's like, well, there's no emphasis in Batman. There's no speech impediment in Batman.
But he could have said Bruce Wayne.
Could have said Bruce Wayne, but I think Playboys is like even more. And to be fair, that's kind of what he thinks of like as part of the story.
Yeah.
So Bugs tells Elmer, it's like, you could kill me, or I could tell you who hired me to do it.
Yeah.
It was Bruce Wayne. And Elmer was like, Bruce Wayne? But then it makes sense that he would think him as like just some playboy,
And it's interesting because Elmer doesn't realize that Bruce Wayne is Batman throughout the entire comic.
No.
And I think the only reason that Bugs gave Bruce Wayne's name instead of Batman's is so that we could have the Bruce Wayne moment and the Playboy moment.
Yeah, and it gives just a classic, like, how this all starts kind of thing. Especially in a noir, that idea of, like, who killed my love? It's like, well, she was shacking up with this guy, and he's like, I'm a rich guy, and I'm going to go and confront him. Like, it's all very noir-esque, isn't it?
Yeah. And I suppose it stands to reason that when Silver St. Cloud gave Bugs... Because we can't spoil the ending, can we?
Well, I've got a key point that will lead us into the ending.
Yeah, cool, do it.
But all I was going to say beforehand was the portrayal of Bugs Bunny I thought was especially interesting.
Yeah.
As a kind of mischievous criminal.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of what Bugs is.
He is, but also, I don't know if everyone else had the same as me, but I assumed, like me, that everyone kind of thought Bugs Bunny is like the protagonist. I mean, he's the protagonist of the Looney Tunes character.
Yeah.
So to see him as like, not even the antagonist, but as a bad guy in this, on the one hand, it's like, well, that's weird, because he's meant to be like the main hero. But then character-wise, his characteristics, like, it fits so well.
But all of the Looney Tunes protagonists are kind of the bad guys.
Some are, yeah, in a sense.
Sylvester.
Yeah, but then Tweebird is definitely the protagonist.
Do you think?
Well,
I think of Sylvester as being the protagonist in that.
I suppose this is also the same with like Coyote and Roadrunner.
Yeah, I think of Coyote as being the protagonist and the antagonist being the thing they're always trying to kill.
But then most of the time, Coyote is trying to eat the Roadrunner, and the Roadrunner is literally just not wanting to be eaten.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it's like, is this a anti-hero kind of the complexities of Looney Tunes? I did not think was going to be this large.
No, but I think this is what it comes down to, isn't it? This is what makes it interesting. Is that
one of the bullet points is literally going to be the complexities of the moral alignments of the Looney Tunes characters.
Yeah, because Bugs is very much our protagonist, and Elmer Fudd is very much our antagonist. But Elmer Fudd is just a hunter trying to hunt a rabbit.
Yeah, but I can get how making a hunter the antagonist fits so well, because at the end of the day, it's like real life people who go hunting. It's like, I enjoy killing animals. It's like, oh, you might be a psychopath.
No,
and
that's
I know there's lots
fair.
of hunters who be like, oh, I take offense to that. It's like, well, calm down.
I do it for population management.
Yeah, and I'm like, I always imagine with that, because that's always the excuse, and it's a legitimate reason to do it. It's a part of conservation. I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is when
You're really leaning into the Looney Tunes thing here.
That's just me. All I'm saying is when someone's like, oh my god, there's too many of these birds, like we're gonna have to do something, or it's gonna disrupt the ecosystem, like we're gonna have to kill some of them. When one guy's like, I'll do it, me, I'll do it. Like, I'm like, I do not trust that guy.
You wouldn't let that guy take your kids to the park,
exactly,
would you? Yeah, I get it. I fully get it. Like,
we are soy boy beta cuck, so naturally we would be against killing animals.
Oh, yeah, man. Have I told you about the ducks?
Oh, the ducks or the geese?
The ducks.
No.
So
duck?
my partner and I want ducks, right? Bear in mind my partner's vegan, and
so to keep.
Well, yeah, to keep for
Right.
like just as pets, maybe the odd egg if they want to give us eggs. But she was like, we'll have to kill the drakes, right? And I was like, but duckies. And she was like, well, no, because the balance is off. The drakes will like kill the female ducks as part of their reproductive practice. Like, male ducks aren't very nice. That's not a moral judgment because they are ducks and it's nature. But yeah, if duck reproduction's not the most pleasant thing in the world. So she's like, you have to keep the drakes separate.
They have corkscrew penises.
They do, and 8 to 10 of them will surround one female and just start shooting their corkscrew penises at them. Like, it's unpleasant.
That's awful.
And so she was like, if we're going to keep ducks, you have to manage the drakes. She was like, you either buy exclusively females and never let them breed and just buy ducklets when you need more ducks, or the drakes are kept separate and there for the pot, Like, that's how that one works.
But you're the only one's going to be eating them.
Well, this is it. And I'm like, I don't know if I could look a cute little ducky in the eye.
I feel like this is just a brand new opinion that I've developed on the spot, and it's no way indicative of how I really feel. Maybe I'll be against it tomorrow. But I feel like if you're of the opinion that, well, we should kill certain animals for very valid reasons, it's like, surely them eating them is fine. Like,
I think you should. Well, again, I'm of the opinion that you shouldn't be eating meat unless you also feel that you could kill and gut and dress your own meat, right?
I thought you were about to say, unless you really want to.
No, like, I feel like if you like look, and again, I eat meat, you eat meat, but if you're going to look at another animal and be like, you are food to me, then you should at least have the fucking minerals to be like, well, I am also the type of person who has the minerals to turn you into food, right?
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense, like, I agree with the sentiment, and like to think of myself as someone who could do that. Also, the reality is I probably couldn't. Like, I'd probably be holding like a chicken with a knife in the hand, but just crying like.
The subtle irony, of course, being that I was raised by a butcher and know how to do these things.
It's not subtle. It's not subtle at all.
And also was a vegetarian for quite a few years in my adult life. But I don't know how we got onto the ducks.
Speaking of ducks, back to Looney Tunes.
I did meet some geese today, though.
Save that for the end, because I think that's a good story.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Retention. If you want to hear Jamie's geese story, stick to the end of the episode.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So, yeah, I thought it's interesting making Bugs Bunny like a kind of bad-ish character.
Yeah.
Like on the bad side, for sure.
Yeah.
But then also just completely fits, because, again, who's the biggest antagonist in the Batman universe? The Joker.
Right, yeah.
And
Okay, I see, yeah. There's a corollary there, isn't there?
Yeah, they're more... Joker and Bugs Bunny are more similar, and then Bugs Bunny and Batman, for sure. But yeah, I thought that was just interesting, like, seeing how that worked out. And I think that's most of the... I mean, like you said earlier, the story is a classic I got this from the Weekly Planet podcast, but they say it's a they fight for a bit and then they're mates story. Like it's literally that to the bare bones. And there's elements of this that this will lead into the talk about the ending. So spoilers if you haven't read this. It's 2 issues long. If you haven't read it, highly advised, go read it. It's well worth the short time it takes you to read it. It's well worth it. But I kind of couldn't decide whether it was worth criticizing the story anyway or not. Because we're not here for the story.
I think it's solid.
Well, it's solid. It's very basic blocks, but there's just little bits of the whole thing is Elmer Fudd turns up at this pie, and again, an example of a serious-ish kind of tone bit was when he's walking through the ball or whatever that's going on. That had an air of this just he's marching to kill someone, and he's a Looney Tunes character.
And then he pops a cap in Batman.
Well, in Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne.
Bruce Wayne, yeah. So then that leads to him kind of fleeing the scene, and then Batman's after him. Batman's like, some fucker just tried to kill me, and I'm going to sort him out.
The fucking Looney Tunes guy just tried to shoot me.
Yeah. But the simplicity of the story of they fight for a bit, and then it's just quite immediate. It's like, you killed Cloud St. Clair, and Batman's like, hang on, what? He's like, I know Bruce Wayne really well, and he didn't kill her. And Elmer Fudd's like, fine, take your word for it, cool. And then leading into the reveal, which is basically there's a bit in the middle where I got it as soon as it got to a point.
Just to clarify, he gives a valid reason for why he trusts Batman.
I forget why was that again?
He says, I don't twust him, but I twust the bunny less.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I twust the bunny less.
This was going to be my again.
But they do give a contextual, plausible reason.
Yeah,
for why Elmer Fudd and Batman become buds, because Batman gives him a plausible explanation, and he comes away from it going, "Well, I don't twust the Batman."
You're going to say it again,
but they give enough context, they give enough of a plausible reason within the confines of this madness. Yeah, that I go, yeah, cool, that makes sense.
But you've actually reminded me of the point I was going to make, to articulate even better. To criticize this story again, it feels off because it's well, we didn't come here for the story, but the story's actually been pretty good. So is it now worth criticizing or not? Yeah. But the point where Elmer is about to kill Bugs Bunny, and Bugs Bunny goes would you spare me if I told you who made me do it? It was Bruce Wayne. And then Elmer Fudd's like, all right, thanks, and leaves. Then later acknowledges, I don't trust Bugs Bunny. So it's well, why did you? I thought he was going to get the name and then kill him. Yeah. And I thought, very noir, very gritty kind of thing. But when he actually left him, I was like, well, I know it's not Bruce Wayne. So I know Bugs is lying. And Elmer just seems a little gullible. And again, weird thing to criticize a Looney Tunes character who routinely fall for the painting tunnel on a wall or all the Acme stuff that Coyote uses. But again, the story was good enough that it now feels warranted to criticize it, which then takes it down a peg.
No, I see your point and I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
So the other point was, I knew what the ending was going to be as soon as we get to a little flashback, not too heavy on them, just Elmer and Cloud St. Clair, and him revealing the minor reveal that when he actually found her, he didn't find her. He found a pool of blood and a carrot. Yeah. And as soon as he said that, I went, oh, Cloud St. Clair's alive. Yeah. I knew immediately.
No body.
Exactly. And that's when I kind of thought, again, having that same thing of thinking of, is it worth criticizing this comic, or should I just forget about that and enjoy the story for what it is? Yeah. And I almost use a phrase which I don't like, that kind of turn your brain off stories or fiction or entertainment. Yeah. I think that's
you love disingenuous. Wrestling.
Yeah, but you turn your brain on for it if you know what you're looking for, and that's some of the best stuff. We haven't got time to get into me explaining the complexities of professional wrestling storytelling.
Right, yeah, the nuances.
Yes, exactly. But within wrestling, there is what people consider that style of wrestling: the big, explosive, bombastic. There's no story; it's just people doing crazy moves, jumping off things, and big kicks. And so, even within that medium, it's that same argument. It's can you enjoy stuff that is, it's hard to describe it. You can't say, I think calling it turn your brain off entertainment is, again, derogatory to it.
Reductive, yeah.
But then there is a kind of element to that where it's I don't have to think as much because I'm enjoying something beyond the conceptualizing the story as it's being given to me, you know? So like John Wick films, like you're not there for the story. You can kind of turn your brain off.
But the little details in John Wick films are phenomenal.
Yeah, and the action is not only amazing, but the effort and the thought required to make it was insane.
Like the first John Wick film is a masterpiece. It really is.
First and fourth are the greatest ones, and they're so tonally different. Like the first one's way more grounded than the fourth one is, but the fourth one is like this huge spectacle of amazing fight scenes and scenery and choreography and stuff.
And that Keanu like did most of that himself as well is really special.
So this is my point I wanted to get across is, like I've probably said a couple of times already, it's just, can you criticize a story when the quality of the story is not what it's meant going for, but it's kind of inadvertently done that? Or Tom King's just such a good writer that he can't help but write a good story?
But we know that's not true because we've read stinkers that he's written.
I'm trying to think of the bad ones. I mean, again, Wonder Woman, I have big criticisms and issues with. I still think I read it. Like, I still think it's a good story, but it's probably one of his weakest. There's other ones that I've read we haven't covered, I don't think. Have we do you remember one that you didn't like, Byron?
So we've done Human Target, which I liked.
Yep.
Supergirl that I liked a lot. We must have read more than 2 Tom King.
Well, we're going to do another one next week, ironically
enough.
Oh,
we're doing Tom King twice in a row?
Yeah, and I didn't plan it, but it's just how it's worked out.
Just how it's panned out. No, I've largely quite liked what he's done. I would have to see a list of everything that we've read.
We'll get a list at the end of the year.
Did he do? No, I tell you what, no, that wasn't him. For a minute, I thought he did the the reboot of the Transformers universe.
Oh no, that was Daniel Warren Johnson.
Void Rivals is what I was thinking of. That wasn't him.
Robert Kirkman.
That was Robert Kirkman, and that was just okay.
Yes. There's probably other things. Oh, again, we'll come back to them later if we can.
But no, I get where you're coming from. I think for me, the story is kind of above criticism because it's fun.
Yeah, and I had a blast reading it. Like I was enjoying it as it was going on, and that's again makes it also difficult to. Well, can I criticize these things if these elements weren't the things that were giving me joy?
Yeah,
it was the mashing of universes and how it feels all weird and crazy to see this happening, and just a story that I was invested in, and I was like, "What's happening?" And
I think what's really interesting here is that Elmer Fudd didn't look massively out of place in the DC universe.
No, I mean, what's interesting, they kind of had to retcon him a little, not even retcon, but they gave him extra stuff to make him fit more, especially to be on par with Batman.
Yeah,
they retconned his history to include the fact that he was also a hitman or something, because he says something like, I was hunting wabbits, I was hunting ducks, and then people saw my skills and there was other things that needed hunting that I could help with.
Yeah.
So now he's kind of combat proficient enough to take on Batman.
But it placed him in the DC universe really well. Like, this iteration of him wasn't particularly out of place.
Yeah, no,
which
exactly.
is really interesting. And you know, there would have been a charm to him being really out of place. Like, when you see the pig Spider-Man in the Spider-Verse.
Spider-Ham.
Yeah, Spider-Ham. And it's
masterfully played by John Mulaney.
Oh, man.
Incredible.
John Mulaney's a great voice actor.
I mean, that character's written so well. Like, the bit I always remember of is his intro. All the other Spider-Verse characters have these cool intros where Noir Spider-Man, Nicolas Cage, and then the anime manga version. And then he walks up and he's like, I'm Spider-Ham. He's like, my hand's wet because I just washed it. I was like, that's such a great character introducing bit.
John Mulaney has a real talent for plying his own voice and calling it voice acting. Because, like, Spider-Ham is just his own voice.
Yeah.
Andrew and Big Mouth is just his own voice.
Yeah.
And they're both such well-voiced characters.
Apparently there's a lot of edits that weren't used in the final Spider-Verse of Spider-Ham, which is just John Mulaney swearing. And I was like,
just really...
God, release that.
But he was still doing a lot of coke at the time.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But it's still funny. Like, doesn't mean it's not funny. His life was falling apart, but it was still funny to watch.
Yeah.
So, we get into the big kind of main part where they realize when they go back to confront, they fight all the Looney Tunes characters in that bar.
Yeah.
And there's a great bit where they just make a joke out of every character.
Yeah.
In that kind of 60s Adam West Batman version.
Yeah.
The best one being, I mean, there was a bunch. I made a note of one just because it was really funny. It was the Faucon Lecorn.
Yeah.
Is that his name? I don't know if I got that right. But I only knew it was him. He didn't look anything like a big chicken, which is fair enough. But he's trying to fight Spider-Man, and Batman, and he goes, I'll say. And then Batman punches him and goes, what were you saying? Like, that's so good.
Yeah, that is good.
And then they fight, they get to Bugs Bunny, and the reveal, again, like, why, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, my criticism earlier was, why did Elmer believe Bugs originally? Then it turns out he's like, you lie. I can't do his voice. You lied to me, and then
You lied to me.
You lied to me, and then Cloud St. Clair turns up, and she's just like, yeah, I just need to get away because you were a bit of a dick. And I was like, whoa.
Well, yeah, I mean, she basically said, I left Batman because he's dangerous, and then it turns out you're
in him.
Yeah, and it turns out you're also a murderer, so I kind of needed to know part of this relationship as well.
And I told Bugs to tell you it was Bruce Wayne because I thought you would get on. Well, I was like,
I thought you guys would like get into some shit together, and it would just sort of, this would all fizzle out.
I think that ending, I almost had a more negative opinion on that ending if that was like the last bit. But then just after, that is the end of the story essentially. Yeah. But then we get Elmer kind of like dwelling on the ending, and he comes out with a line. And literally, like, my immediate reaction after reading this line, he says, I think it's internal monologue again. Yeah. He says, all I know is everything has a season. You just got to read the sign. And I was like, God damn it, King, you've done it again. Yeah. Like, that's actually poignant and incredibly including of the source lore of Elmer Fudd.
Yeah.
The whole rabbit season, duck season. I was like, you've actually made a poignant noir ending line
from that
Looney Tunes joke. Brilliant stuff.
And then we get a Looney Tunes strip.
Yes, which I appreciated in just that I was like, it's fun they did this. I wasn't nearly as invested. I'd be shocked at the person who was like, oh, that original story, that main story was a bit dragging along, but this last story, peak writing. Like, it's just a fun Looney Tunes story of Elmer Fudd shooting Batman in the face over and over again because Bugs Bunny keeps tricking him.
Yeah.
And then do you remember the joke at the end?
Yeah.
You want to tell it?
What, where they're talking about whether it's bat season
or rabbit season.
Yeah, and Bugs Bunny and Batman are going back and forth saying, no, I'm the Batman, no, I'm the Batman, no, I'm the Batman. And then Elmer Fudd says, well, it's bat season. And then Batman says, no, I'm not a bat, I'm Batman.
There's jokes like that. I'm surprised you're not jumping to this immediately. He calls in the Robins, and then Bugs Bunny changed it to Robin season.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
I thought Dick Grayson turning up would have been like your main talking point.
Dick Grayson turned up. Yeah. Well, was it Dick Grayson, though?
Yeah, it was Nightwing. So it was Nightwing, Robin, Red Robin, and Damian Wayne. So it was like all four of the main ones.
Oh, I didn't clock.
I
maybe didn't read the comic strip till the end, if I'm being honest.
Again, I did warn you before, and I was like, you could just skim this last part. Like, it's
so
fine.
Dick Grayson turns up.
Yeah, Dick Grayson.
Oh man, I wish I'd read it because then I'd have been really excited about it.
He was there and you missed it.
I missed Dick Grayson.
Can't believe. Are you even a Dick Grayson fan? I might be the biggest.
I am probably one of the biggest Dick Grayson fans going.
Definitely the most erotic.
You've not bought me the body pillow yet.
Not yet. Emphasis on yet. So yeah, I think that's most of the stuff we talk about in this essentially 2-issue comic. But I mean, it was a lot of fun, like great for what it was. And apparently general consensus is the best of the DC crossover stuff. I was considering doing Batman and Daredevil, but this just seemed, again, most people said this was a lot better than those.
That's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, but maybe we will do a Batman Daredevil. I mean, they didn't look that good, but there's some fun stuff where they're interacting, and maybe one day.
This was exceptionally good fun.
Yes, loads of fun. I've just got one more thing to mention, which was I read at the end of this comic. Did you read the bits at the end about it's just a little bit like describing Tom King and Lee Weeks, like who they are, and there's normally like a bit at the end of comic stuff where it's like so and so has worked on these titles with these, and he lives in blah 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 with his wife and kids. Like it's that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and it is essentially that at the end of this for Tom King and Lee Weeks. But the funny thing is, little reveal about Tom King, which I had heard and thought honestly was a joke. I didn't realize this was true. Tom King, there's a reveal about him in the end, right? You haven't read it.
Yeah,
I would say I'd be shocked if you guessed this.
Okay.
Do you want to bother trying to guess, or do you want me to just tell you?
Just tell me.
Tom King, before writing comics, worked for someone, who do you think that could be that'd be shocking?
Donald Trump?
No, but you're not that far off.
Bill Clinton?
Not a president, but again, you're close in terms of...
Elon Musk?
No, he worked for the CIA.
Fuck off.
He worked...
What the fuck was Tom King doing for the CIA?
Counter-terrorism for the CIA.
And he was doing Patriot Act bullshit.
And honestly,
He was a G-man.
I've been seeing this about Tom King on like forums and stuff like for the past few years. And I honestly just thought it was a joke. Like,
Yeah.
I generally thought it was like, I knew Tom King is a controversial writer, quality alone. Like, he hasn't done anything. It's literally just on the quality of some of his writing.
He's quite divisive, isn't he?
Yes, exactly. So when I see people being like, oh yeah, Tom King, bloody CIA agent, or whatever, and I was like, it's funny because you don't like him. Like, I guess that's the joke or whatever. And then I saw this bit at the end, I was like, oh shit. Like, no wonder he's so good at constructing narratives.
He worked for the CIA.
When he's not too busy overthrowing foreign governments and putting in puppet dictators,
Yeah.
he was working on his screenplays for comic books, I guess.
That's hilarious.
It's so crazy.
I do have a correction from last week's episode.
Oh, wow.
I got a message from our historical correspondent who was very upset with me. Oppenheimer did work on the Manhattan Project.
See, I did not know nearly enough to confront you on that. I think it was a thing I had in my head. I've seen the Oppenheimer film. I think there's a bit in that where he does work there.
But yeah, he worked on the Manhattan Project, and I said he didn't.
To be fair, he's not as well known for that.
I think it's because I knew who the lead scientist was and assumed that because Oppenheimer's a big name, he would only be the lead scientist on something.
Yeah, I guess by that point he wasn't.
Yeah.
He became a big name for his work afterwards I can't remember what the project was called, but it was in the desert and they made the first nuclear bomb, essentially.
Yeah, they made the A-bomb.
Yes. The only other thing that's all comic book wise. I saw something interesting that I thought would be interesting to talk about very briefly.
Yeah.
A comic book writer who is not writing on the Ultimate Universe, but somehow seems to know this. Basically, he said, when asked on Twitter by someone, he said, apparently, the Ultimate Universe is going to be ending on issues 24 of their runs, right?
Oh, man.
But here's the thing. I don't believe him.
No.
I think, so he said this, and people are kind of like, well, he does work in the industry, and he works with these people, so he's likely to know this. He might know. But also, it's weird that he's saying it, and not someone who works on the titles or anything.
Yeah.
Apparently, someone spoke to. I'm recalling this off the dome. I might get some facts wrong, so take everything I say with a pinch of salt. Someone I think referred to Peach Momoko's partner saying that they didn't know anything about this, and they would have thought that Peach Momoko would know, writing Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah, well, yeah, because if you've only got 24 issues, you need to make sure you've got it wrapped up in 24 issues, don't you?
But here's why I think it's true and not true, because the 24 issues lines up with the 2 years that the Maker is meant to return in the universe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I don't think the universe or the series are ending. I think the titles will end on 24 because of the big Ultimate Universe event.
Yeah.
And then I think new titles will start after that.
Yeah.
Or the characters will be moved around in some way. So I think there's going to be unending at 24. I don't think it's not the end of the universe.
I think it would be a shame if this grand experiment ended at 24.
I think it's doing too well. I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man is one of their best-selling comics in ages.
Yeah, and the Ultimates is doing well, isn't it? And
rave reviews. I'd be shocked if it ended now, especially like they just bought in Ultimate Wolverine. Like, how long a run is he gonna get?
Yeah,
I'm interested to see what they do at the 24 mark, because
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be, well, that was incredibly successful, time to stop.
Yeah.
Because if anything, when it comes to media properties and studios, whatever, their biggest problem is they always drag things on for way too long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you have a fear of the Ultimate Universe ending because you're really enjoying the comics, as am I, but you are, I mean, I always refer to the previous Ultimate Universe ending, and that's almost like that's almost like a support for this one ending, but that one was well off the tracks by the time it ended. Like, it should have ended way earlier.
Yeah.
It got dragged out in absolutely shit quality writing for ages afterwards.
Ages after it should have just been finished.
Exactly. So, I'm shocked that any studio anywhere, especially one like Marvel that's under Disney, would be like, yeah, this is going really well. Should we just stop now?
Yeah,
like
just...
the opposite problem is the prevalent one in this kind of industry. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to. Anyway, now we're near the end. Would you like to tell your Geese story? We promised the people. We promised them.
So, for reference, guys, I drive a tiny little 2-seater sports car. My partner sent me today to collect a chest of drawers in my tiny little 2-seater sports car. I turn up at this house. It's on a road in Norwich that is notorious for being really difficult because...
One of many, to be fair.
Yeah, so it has the problem that you have in a lot of cities with these little terraced housing estates whereby you can only fit one car down the street because people park on either side of the road. This one's unique in that it's really long, it's kind of curved, and it's up a hill.
Yeah.
So when you have to reverse the entire way up it, it's very stressful, and like traffic mounts up on both sides. It goes onto a main road at both sides. It becomes annoying. So anyway, I go through this whole rigmarole of like reversing back and joshing for position, and I finally get to this house. And then the woman opens the door, and there's just two goslings.
Not Ryan's.
There's just two goslings in the living room.
Baby geese?
Yeah, baby. But one of them is like 5 weeks old, so he's quite mature and he's getting his feathers. And the other one is a day old. And they spend the entire time that I'm like, the entire duration of this transaction where I'm trying to buy this chest of drawers from these two women, they're just trying to stop 5-week-old Gosling from murdering day-old Gosling. And I look at them and I'm like, why have you got two geese?
You literally experienced real-life Looney Tunes before reading a Looney Tunes DC crossover.
Yeah, so I ask, and it's like...
And this was today.
This was like before I got here. And there was an older woman whose house it clearly was, and her daughter who was like quite sort of preoccupied with trying to maintain the safety of this tiny little goose. And I'm like, why have you got geese? And the older woman looks at me and goes, I don't know. And I'm like, no, that isn't an acceptable
you
answer.
Cannot. No.
And she said, well, my husband came home with a bunch of goose eggs. And I was like, no, that's a reason you have breakfast, not a reason you have geese. Why do you have geese? And she was like, well, he came home with the goose eggs. And then like a few days later, an incubator turned up. And I was like, oh, where's your husband? She went, he's fucked off on work. So he brought a bunch of goose eggs, right, into the house and then put them in an incubator and was like, by the way, I've got like a 2-week work trip. She was like, how long are these eggs going to take to hatch? And he was like, I don't know. So there's just fucking geese everywhere.
I know you're telling a story, but can you keep the foul language down?
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, come for the comic book talk, stay for the foul stories.
Yeah, so I got to hang out with some geese today in a terrace house. It was a weird day, man.
Yeah, you told me this before we recorded. I was like, save that for the podcast, because that's going in the best of.
Gold.
That's gold. Well, as I said, it's a hot room, and we've just clicked over the hour mark, so we fulfilled our contractual obligations.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening. And if you enjoy listening, I know there's a beer recording at the end that tells you this, but I want to tell you with some
Are you
gusto
starting
in my
to do
voice.
2 sets of calls to action?
Well, I feel like not only have we dissected the moral alignments of the Looney Tunes characters when no one asked us to.
No one asked us to.
And delved into the consciousness, the human consciousness, and how it differs between two halves of the population.
Yeah.
That are a warring race that don't even know each other's existence.
Yeah.
We've done all this, and people have listened to this for free, and we love that. But all I'm saying is, we've given you this for free, so the least you could do is leave us a 5-star review, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's worth that much.
Like and subscribe. And
if you are listening and thinking, well, I've already left you a 5-star review, thank you. We've seen them. We very much appreciate them. All I'm saying is you can download another, you can get on another podcaster catcher and do the same on there, is all I'm saying.
Is it all you're saying?
It's all I'm saying.
It's all you're saying.
Yes. Anyway, that's all. Again, just wanted to give a bit of gusto.
So thank you for listening to the calls to action.
Here's some more.
Here's some more calls to action. Good night.
Thank you. And thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to get notified of our future episodes as well. And if you're feeling particularly generous, then please leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast app you're using. If you'd like to get in contact with us, then send an email to comiclit@gmail.com. You can also watch videos by me on the Comic Stand YouTube page, which is linked in the description. Thank you, goodbye.